Hey there! Thanks for clicking on my story. I promise to make this an interesting one. Now, I know you've read the title and you're probably thinking that there was some mean girl at high school picking on me and making my life miserable. Promise not to laugh when I tell you who my real bully was? Promise? Okay, it was my little sister Melanie. She was 12 years old and I swear she was like the child of Satan himself. Satan and a really horrible woman because I swear I couldn't understand how we had the same parents and similar genes. We were so different. I was 16 years old, so we only had 4 years between us. I was bigger, taller, and smarter, but you don't need to be big to be a bully. You just have to be mean. And that was Melanie. But before I continue my story, would you please like the video and subscribe to the channel? It would mean a lot to me if you hit that notification bell too. Thanks, you're the best. Now, you're probably wondering what this 12-year-old could have done to me that was so horrible. There's just so much. Where do I even start? I'll start by giving you some different situations. When she was 4 and I was 8, she started hitting me. She did this when my parents were not looking, and they'd never believe me when I told them what she was doing. Sometimes she'd just be like,
"Hey, Katie, turn around. Look what I brought you."
And I'd turn around, and she'd just smack me in the face with a handful of mud. I didn't hit back because I was supposed to be the older one, and I was a really calm person who never liked violence. But one day, I really couldn't take it anymore. We were sitting, watching TV, and her favorite show had just finished. I took the remote because I wanted to watch something else. It was my turn after all, and she pulled it back from me and hit me in the face with it. I pulled it back from her and did the same to her. Harder, because I was bigger. She started screaming and wailing all the way upstairs to my parents, who scolded me for being a horrible big sister. But she hit me first.
That's not true. Melanie would never hit anyone. She's such a good girl.
My mom was delusional. My dad looked a bit suspicious, but he didn't say anything to her, and I was grounded. But that was fine because I didn't like going out anyway. I liked to sit in my room and read. But Melanie just became more and more annoying. She'd always eat my snacks and she left her toys everywhere. She'd scream at me so I'd pick them up. I don't know why I was so soft, but I just was, and I listened to her. As we got older, she pretended to be too young to do any chores, and she left everything for me to do. And she just continued becoming more and more evil. Sometimes, if I said or did something she didn't agree with, she'd barge into my room and destroy my stuff. I'll never forget this super cool solar system model I had created for our science fair the next day. I was sure my teacher would be so impressed and proud of me. Well, do you know what Melanie did? She pulled out all the planets and stepped on them. It was too late to do another one and I was just devastated. I was so devastated that I cried all night and my mom didn't believe me. She thought I destroyed it by myself, but that made no sense. Sometimes my dad would stand up for me when Melanie was being wicked, but I just wished he'd do it more often. So, fast forward a bit to when I was in high school and Melanie was just starting middle school. Now, I didn't really mind Melanie's awfulness as much when it didn't affect my social life at school, but what she did next made me realize it was time for a change. In the morning, I'd usually lay the clothes I intended to wear on the bed, then I'd go to shower. So that particular morning, I put on my clothes after I left the shower and went straight to school. I noticed Melanie laughing a bit, but I figured that she was just being stupid as usual. When I got to school and walked through the hallway, I noticed that everyone was staring at me. First they stared, then they got out their phones and started recording and laughing.
"Oh my God, Katie!"
My best friend Paula said while pushing me near the girls' bathroom and covering my pants with her backpack until we got inside safely. What's going on? Why is everyone laughing at me?
"There is a huge hole in your pants. We can all see your bright orange underwear. How didn't you notice this?"
It was fine when I put it on the bed this morning. Oh no, that brat Melanie. She must have cut a hole in it when I went to the shower.
I think she's taken it a bit too far this time. Don't you think it's about time you taught her a lesson?
Yes, Paula, but I don't know how.
Do what you always do. Sit down and make a list. I'm tired of watching your life get ruined because of a silly child. That video is going to go viral. How are you ever going to get a boyfriend now if you're the laughingstock of the school? Ugh, I'm sorry, but we've got to do something about her,
Paula replied. Luckily, she had a pair of gym shorts in her bag, and she let me wear them for the rest of my most humiliating day at school. When I got home that afternoon, Melanie saw my shorts.
Nice shorts. What happened to your pants?
You've taken it too far this time. I went to my room to create a plan, but luckily, I didn't have to think too much. Melanie was having a sleepover that night, and 3 of her little snotty friends came over. When it was about 9 o'clock that night, and my mom had sent them to bed, I listened through the door to hear what they were talking about.
Melanie, Andy was totally checking you out today. Really? Yeah, I think he likes you too. I'm too nervous to talk to him. You just gotta have courage. We believe in you.
As her little friends chuckled and encouraged her, I realized I'd found her weakness. She liked a boy. I walked back to my room and got started on my plan. In no time, I had found Andy's Instagram handle, Snapchat, TikTok, and he even had Facebook. I thought kids nowadays thought that was old-fashioned. I made an Instagram profile pretending to be my sister and sent him a message. I was going to set them up, then break them up in an awful way. What? She deserved it. I sent him a message immediately. Hey Andy, it's Melanie. I think you're really cute. Would you consider going out with me? I could see that he was online, but he didn't reply until the next day.
Okay.
He didn't seem very enthusiastic. I'm having a party at my house later. You could come if you want, I replied.
Sure. Send me the address. I'll have my dad drop me over.
Later that day, I made sure I was the first one home from school. I decorated the house with a few balloons and started cooking dinner. When my parents and Melanie got home, they were pleasantly surprised.
What's the occasion?
My mom asked. Oh, nothing. I just decided to be nice. I also put your clothes in the washing machine, Melanie, I said. Well, I didn't put all her clothes in there, just the nice ones to make sure she wore something old and ugly. When everyone was seated at the dinner table, I heard the doorbell ring. I'll get it! I screamed and jumped out of my chair. I opened the door and there Andy was, a funny-looking little guy.
Is this Melanie's house? I thought there was a party tonight.
Well, yes it is. She invited you? That's weird.
Why?
Well, it's just family, and we're celebrating because she hasn't wet the bed for a whole month.
What?
Yes, she's been wearing diapers since she was born, and she never grew out of them. But it's been a month since she's had to use them, so we're having a big celebration. She must really trust you if she asked you to come. Anyway, come in, have a seat. I smiled. When I walked to the table with Andy, Melanie sat in shock.
Hi, Melanie.
He said.
I'm so happy I get to celebrate this special occasion with you.
What occasion?
Aw, you don't have to be ashamed. It's okay, I won't tell anyone.
He said.
You invited a boy over?
My mom said, shocked. Melanie didn't reply. She was too shocked. Also, my parents had a no dating until you're 16 rule, so I knew they were boiling inside, but they were probably just as confused as Melanie, and they were trying to be polite to the strange boy. After dinner, Melanie ran up to her room for a while, and I invited Andy to the living room to sit down. I used this as the perfect opportunity for more mischief. I went back to the kitchen pretending to get him a snack. Then I took out my phone and sent a message to Andy from Melanie's fake account. Do you want to hang out at the mall with me tomorrow? Melanie came back downstairs and sat next to him. I listened from afar.
What time do you want to go to the mall tomorrow?
He asked.
What? Are you asking me out?
Okay. If you want to put it that way, fine.
Is 4 p.m. okay?
Yeah, I guess.
And that was that. Later that night, after Andy had left, I heard Melanie snickering on the phone with her friends.
Andy showed up at my house. No, I don't know how it happened. He asked me out too, to the mall, tomorrow. Of course, I know I'm not allowed to date. I'll just tell my parents I'm at the library or something. They won't think I'm lying. I'm their perfect little girl.
The next day, I made sure to go to the mall just before 4. Melanie was sitting near the food court all by herself looking a bit nervous. Then Andy approached her, and her eyes lit up. I took out my phone and took many pictures of them. I followed them all over the mall and even took a few videos too. Then I posed as one of my mom's friends and sent her all the pictures with the message, "Is this your little girl? Isn't 12 a little too young to be dating?" I went home to wait for the storm. When Melanie got home, both my mom and dad were sitting on the couch with a very stern expression on their faces.
Melanie, where are you?
My dad said.
At the library, like I told you, remember? So, explain this.
My mom said while showing her the pictures. Melanie looked horrified.
First, you bring a boy here without even asking us, and now you're lying to sneak out with him? I thought we raised you better than that. But, shut up! Go to your room!
My mom screamed. I laughed really loudly, then went to my room to plan more mischief. I wasn't done yet, obviously. I quickly sent a message to Andy. Hey, I can't see you anymore because my friend Sandra really likes you. She wants you to ask her out tomorrow. He replied instantly.
Whoa, Sandra's so hot. Thanks for letting me know.
Later that night, while feeling very satisfied with myself, I walked near my parents' bedroom and heard them talking. I don't know why, but I got my phone out and started recording the conversation. It sounded like they were arguing.
I don't know if I can do this anymore. You're not doing much to discipline that child, and she's getting out of control.
My dad said.
But you don't do anything to help.
But she's not even my kid.
Robert!
I tried to raise her as my own, but the truth is she's nothing like me. This would never have happened if you hadn't had that stupid affair. I don't know why I didn't divorce you immediately.
I gasped. So Satan really was Melanie's father, huh? I stopped the recording and sent it straight to Melanie's phone. Then I barged into my parents' room. I heard everything. So Melanie is only my half-sister? Dad, what are you waiting for? Divorce this woman and take me away with you.
That is unacceptable, young woman.
My mom screamed. Be quiet, cheater. Melanie has been the most horrible sister in the universe, and you've always defended her. This is why? Because she's some special prize from an affair? You cheated on Dad. Melanie walked into the room with tears in her eyes.
Is it true?
She cried.
Oh, honey, I'm so sorry.
My mom said while trying to hug her. I looked at my dad, and we both knew it was time. It's been 2 years since then, and we are living happily 3 states away from my mom and her awful child, Melanie. She experienced 2 heartbreaks before the divorce was final, though. That she wasn't who she thought she was, and also that Andy was way more into her friend Sandra than he ever was into her. I didn't mean for it to get this far, but hey, she asked for it, right? Hopefully she's trying to become a better person.
Molly, where's my sandwich?
Aiden yelled from the TV room. I'm coming,
And don't forget the pickles on mine.
yelled Ethan. I grabbed everything quickly, packed it on the tray, and hustled to the TV room. My brothers snatched the tray and began to devour their meal. Not even so much as a thank you, but I guess I was accustomed to it by now. Just then, Aiden's phone rang.
Hello, good day, Mr. Peterson. How can I help you?
He listened for a bit before responding.
Yes, he's here. I'll put it on loudspeaker.
Beat it, you brat.
Ethan snarled as he grabbed me roughly by the arm, threw me out of the room, and closed the door. I rubbed my arm and opened the door slightly, kneeled, and placed my ear by the opening. Mr. Peterson told my brothers that he wanted 25 passports and ID cards in 3 days. He was willing to pay them $25,000. And then suddenly the door opened, and what happened next changed my life forever. Hi, I'm Molly. Before I continue my crazy story, tap that thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to smash that notification bell so you'll know when more stories like mine are posted. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of my backstory. Mom married Dad, who had twin boys. Mom was an only child, and Dad had an older sister, Stephanie. My brothers and I were never really close, as they're 9 years older than me. Dad came from a wealthy family, and he also had his own medical practice. A few days after my 16th birthday, my parents were headed to the airport to attend a medical conference out of state. Unfortunately, they got into a fatal car accident. My brothers got custody over me. That was about 6 months ago. Since then, my life has been a series of unfortunate events.
You look exhausted.
Ember, my best friend, remarked when I met her that morning for a daily walk to school. I stifled a yawn. Aiden and Ethan had a few friends over last night. I was up until 4 a.m. putting the house back together.
You're not their maid, you know. You should stand up for yourself.
It's 2 against 1. The odds aren't exactly in my favor. Just as we entered the school gates, the bell rang and we hurried for our last class. That afternoon, I walked home from school alone since Ember had swimming practice. Upon entering the house, I heard the phone ringing. Aiden? Ethan? I yelled as I entered. The ringing stopped. Well, that's strange. I muttered when I didn't receive a reply. My brothers were usually at home around this time. The phone rang again. I wasn't allowed to answer the phone, but what if something happened to my brothers? Should I answer it or let it ring? We didn't have an answering machine, so maybe I should. This ping-pong match lasted for a few seconds, and I finally put the receiver to my ear. Hello?
Hi, Molly.
Mr. Holdings, the family lawyer, greeted me.
How have you been?
I'm okay. Would you like to leave a message for Ethan or Aiden?
Actually, I'm glad I got you. I've been wanting to speak with you about your parents' will.
A few days after my parents died, Aiden and Ethan spoke to the lawyer. They never gave me any information from the meeting. Okay, what is it?
Have you been receiving the stipend your parents left for you monthly?
Stipend? I raised an eyebrow. Mr. Holdings went on to explain that my parents left me a monthly stipend of $2,500 per month and a stipend for my brothers or guardian, which was about $5,000 to ensure I was well taken care of. Since my parents died, I haven't received as much as a new t-shirt from my brothers. I haven't received anything.
Then I would assume they didn't tell you that your parents left you a house and $2 million.
No, they didn't. I was shocked. How could my brothers keep this type of information from me?
Molly, are you sure you're okay? Your Aunt Stephanie would be happy to take you if your brothers aren't taking care of you.
I hesitated for a moment. Aiden and Ethan told me stories about how Aunt Stephanie treated them in the past. The nickname they had for her was Cruella. Maybe they were lying about her. If I didn't live with them, then they wouldn't get the stipend. I threw caution to the wind and told Mr. Holdings about everything that had happened over the past 6 months. Mr. Holdings told me that he would contact me with my new living arrangements, but I needed to give him some time. I told him that I wasn't allowed to use the phone. He said he would try and find a way to get a message to me. Before hanging up, I told him to please not tell my brothers about our conversation. He assured me that our conversation was confidential. After chatting with Mr. Holdings, I felt lighter and somewhat relieved. Maybe I can have a brighter future than the one I envisioned. Over the next 3 weeks, I didn't hear anything from Mr. Holdings. I just can't take this anymore, I muttered to myself one evening while preparing sandwiches for my brothers. By hook or by crook, I have to find a way out of here.
Molly, where's my sandwich?
Aiden yelled from the TV room. I'm coming,
And don't forget the pickles on mine!
yelled Ethan. I grabbed everything quickly, packed it on the tray, and hustled to the TV room. My brothers snatched the tray and began to devour their meal. Not even so much as a thank you, but I guess I was accustomed to it by now. Just then, Aiden's phone rang.
Hello, good day, Mr. Peterson. How can I help you?
He listened for a bit before responding.
Yes, he's here. I'll put it on loudspeaker.
Beat it, you brat!
Ethan snarled as he grabbed me roughly by the arm, threw me out of the room, and closed the door. I rubbed my arm and opened the door slightly, kneeled, and placed my ear by the opening. Mr. Peterson told my brothers that he wanted 25 passports and ID cards in 3 days. He was willing to pay them $25,000. Suddenly, the door opened, and startled, I fell into the room.
What the heck are you doing?
Ethan growled. I was looking for my contact lens. After you threw me out of the room, it fell out, you idiot. I snapped. Ethan raised his hand to slap me, but Aiden held his hand back.
We don't have time for this. Deal with her when we come back. We have things to take care of.
Ethan shoved me against the wall and pointed his finger in my face.
Clean the kitchen before we come back.
I cleaned the kitchen already.
No, you haven't.
Ethan looked at me smugly before turning away and heading towards the kitchen. I heard glass shattering and things being thrown against the wall. Aiden and I walked to the kitchen. By the time we got there, it was totally trashed.
Now,
Ethan adjusted his clothes.
clean it up.
He turned to Aiden.
Let's go.
As soon as my brothers left, I sprinted to the basement. I had a hunch. Dad always had spare keys lying around just in case. I needed to get the office open. I figured that's where they were doing their illegal business since it was the only locked door in the house and I never cleaned that room. I found the small box with the keys and headed to the office. If I was able to get the door open, I would be able to get a passport and an ID card. I was always told that I looked over 18 anyway, so I didn't doubt that my charade would work. The box held about 20 keys, and I swore under my breath as I tried key after key, but none opened the door. I was about to give up when I pushed a key in and I heard the lock open. I sighed in relief. I stepped into the office and closed the door behind me. Everything in the office was set up and it looked easy enough to create the items that I needed. I got to work quickly. As soon as I finished creating my passport and ID card, I called the police and told them about my brother's illegal business. I also told them that my brothers had locked me in a room and I needed help to escape. The officer on the other end said that a car was on their way to me. I smiled slyly as I hung up the phone. I ran to my room and I packed a bag quickly and returned to the office and headed for Dad's safe. I needed to get enough money to survive until I could find a way to get to Mr. Holding's office. Luckily for me, my brothers did not change the code for the safe. As soon as it was open, I began to pile money into my bag. While doing this, I heard a frosty voice behind me and my eyes widened.
Are you stealing from us, little sister?
I spun around and there stood Ethan by the door. I quickly zipped up my bag and placed it on my back before standing to face him.
If I were you, I would put it back.
Ethan stepped into the room and walked menacingly towards me.
Or would you prefer we speak with the police?
I'm not stealing from anyone. Mr. Holdings told me about the money Mom and Dad left me and the stipend they're giving you to take care of me. So please, Ethan, call the police. I bet they would just love to know how you've been treating me over the past 6 months and not giving me my stipend that my parents left for me. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll be leaving now.
Molly?
Aiden's voice came from behind Ethan. I pushed past Ethan and tried to exit the office, but Aiden wouldn't let me pass.
Look, we're sorry about the way we treated you. We all suffered tremendous loss and we didn't handle the situation as we should have. I know it would take some time for us to make it up to you, but please forgive us and allow us to. Family should stick together. Isn't that what your mom always used to say?
The sincerity in Aiden's voice made me reconsider if I was doing the right thing. He was right. They'd also lost their dad, and the past 6 months have been hard. I sighed heavily.
So, what do you say? Truce?
Aiden extended his hand. A small smile curved my lips. I took up his hand and shook it. And then suddenly Aiden jerked my hand, twisted it behind my back, and pinned me to the wall.
You trust way too easily, Molly. That's no way to live your life. Whether you like it or not, you're stuck with us for the next 2 years.
The doorbell rang and everyone froze. When no one responded, the person on the other side identified himself as a police officer.
Take her to the basement and make sure she stays there.
Aiden instructed Ethan. Ethan placed his hand over my mouth as he dragged me, kicking and screaming, to the basement, while Aiden answered the front door. Ethan threw open the basement door and threw me inside and closed the door behind us. I searched for anything that would help me get the upper hand on Ethan, who was taller and stronger than I was. My eyes came across a hockey stick in the corner. I glanced at Ethan, who may have guessed what I was planning to do. He lunged at me, but I quickly sidestepped him and went for the hockey stick. My fingers grazed the hockey stick, but I wasn't able to hold on as Ethan grabbed hold of my hair and pulled me back. I struggled to get free, my hands groping aimlessly around the basement for anything I could use. My hands held onto something cold and hard. It was a wrench. I swung it at Ethan, but he dodged it and threw me to the ground. His knees on either side of my chest, he snatched the wrench from my grasp. Hunched over me, his face contorted in anger. He pressed it against my neck. I used my hands to try and push him off, but he was too strong. My air supply was being cut off. I was on the verge of passing out when the basement door flew open.
Hands in the air or I'll shoot.
Ethan dropped the wrench and stood up. I rubbed my neck weakly.
Oh, Molly!
I heard Aunt Stephanie's voice. The officer handcuffed Ethan, and Aunt Stephanie helped me to get to my feet and hugged me.
Are you okay?
I nodded with tears in my eyes.
Let's get you out of here.
We walked to the living room where another officer, Mr. Holdings, and Aiden were standing.
Molly, all the arrangements have been made and you'll be staying with your aunt from now on.
Ethan laughed devilishly.
You think your Aunt Stephanie is better than we are? Come on, let's get you to the station.
The officer pulled Ethan towards the door. Ethan looked over his shoulder.
You're making a big mistake.
Are you ready to go, sweetie?
Auntie Stephanie looked at me. I nodded, and we left. The next few months with Auntie Stephanie was a breath of fresh air. We went shopping, stayed up late watching movies, and I even got a cell phone and a laptop. Life was great. The only thing was that I had to switch schools, so I couldn't see Ember as much as I wanted to, but we chatted every night before going to bed. One night, while I was about to step into the kitchen, I heard Aunt Stephanie chatting with someone on the phone. I assumed it was Mr. Holdings since she asked if she could get a larger stipend since taking care of a teenage girl was costly. Hurt by what I just heard, I went into my room and packed a bag. I can't believe I fell for it. All she's interested in is the money. It was never about me. I still had the money, the passport, and the fake ID from all of those months ago. I waited until my aunt was sleeping that night before I ran away. I was able to get a decent apartment and a part-time job after school, which kept me afloat until my 18th birthday. When my birthday finally came around, I contacted Mr. Holdings and I was given access to my inheritance. I refused to let anyone get close to me because I don't know if they like me or the money that I have. Maybe this will change in the future, but until then, it's important for me to keep my peace.